Hello and welcome to Stereotypical, the podcast about music and the people that make it. My name is Liam McGrath. I am, as always, joined by Mr. Jack O'Neill. Today, coming at you with the first Stereotypical Ranked in a good long while. For those who haven't seen it before, Ranked is the sub-series of Stereotypical where we'll pick an artist and we'll rank their back catalogue worst to best. Today is all about the Ginger Fury. Mr. Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran himself, yeah.
Talk to me, Jacko. This was your idea to do this ranked. Are you a fan of Mr. Sheeran?
I like Ed Sheeran, yeah. I think it'd be stupid not to like Ed Sheeran.
Right.
He's just a whiz. Ginger Fury might be a fitting term for the guy.
Yeah.
He's a whiz. I feel like everything he touches turns to gold, one of them.
Yeah, I do respect him a lot just because of how much of a pop giant he is, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's got to the point now with Ed Sheeran, I say this about Beyonce a lot, it's like no matter what she does, it's kind of going to be popping.
Right.
And it's kind of the same with Ed Sheeran now, isn't it?
Yeah.
No matter what he works on, he's good at what he does. He's one of the best at what he's doing. Whoever he works with, that song's going to do well.
Yeah, he's got the golden touch.
The ginger touch.
The ginger touch. So had you heard these albums before, or was there a lot of new listening involved?
I'd heard all of the albums before, bar the latest one.
The
Autumn Variations one.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, me neither.
It was just like a little
the rest,
low-key drop, wasn't
it? Everything he's done so far is kind of iconic, I think. When we started this, she's like, are we including that collaborations project, which we are, album.
Yeah.
Just people didn't see that one coming, you know what I mean? But he still had a big impact. He's been around a long time, guy.
He has. He started pretty young, I suppose.
I don't know how old he was.
I think he was only maybe 20, 21 when that first album came out.
I feel like he would have been younger.
You reckon? Well, he definitely sounds young on it, but I guess we'll get into that.
That's what I mean, because he's been around
in a minute.
Forever.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you.
What?
He says what so aggressively, doesn't he? I'd heard maybe two of these records before, and then I'd obviously heard songs off the other ones. I've heard all the singles and stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the most enjoyable episode prep I've ever done.
Is that because he's a sad boy?
No, I
just shit.
Yeah, a little bit. not massively.
The disrespect, man.
No.
This fucking orange bollock is gonna attack you.
I think as well it didn't help that we planned these episodes kind of last minute. So
I wouldn't say we planned them last minute. What are you talking about?
I wouldn't say we planned them at all.
Well, we set up. We got a list. We got a ranking. What do you mean? What more planning do you want?
We decided. Okay, put it this way. We decided that we were going to do an Ed Sheeran ranked at most 7 days before we were due to shoot it.
Yeah.
So I then had to listen to every Ed Sheeran album in that time.
Do you not listen to music that much anyway, throughout your days? You just have to substitute what you're listening to an Ed Sheeran album. That's what I found it as.
I didn't want to have to compromise what I was listening to ordinarily, so I was listening to my normal amount of music, and then every day an Ed Sheeran album or two.
Getting fatigued.
I definitely got Sheeran fatigue. Yeah.
Okay.
I had to go to the doctors about it. It was pretty intense.
What did they say?
They said you've got Sheeran fatigue.
Diagnosed.
You need to stop listening to Ed Sheeran.
No, but I was the opposite. I listen to music all the time, as I assume a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So I just went through him, just instead of my normal everyday listening.
Yeah, well, I think, and obviously we'll get into this as we dive into the albums in a sec, but a couple of them did start to just blend into one another. You know what I mean?
I completely understand and agree.
But okay, right. Well, let's.
You look noteless right now.
It's over here. That's why. Let's.
Okay.
I just put it over here for the intro. Let's cut the shit. Let's get on with it.
Shoot the shit.
And let's shoot the shit. Right.
Okay,
so
let's go.
Just as a caveat, when the artist has more than 5 albums, we just do the top 5. Come on. What do you think this is? What do you think this is? We ain't got all day.
Can be better.
Neither of you. So yeah, be better. Make less albums, and we'll review them all.
Okay.
So we're just doing top 5, and also
worst to
best. Yeah, worst to best.
Yeah,
and we will only go in deep talking about an album once we've both listed it on our lists.
Yeah.
No doubt we'll end up talking about all the albums anyway, because there'll be ones that.
Yeah, that's the point in it. That's what I'm fucking here for.
Okay.
Numero 5. So Spanish natives out there.
Just give me 2 seconds just to rethink about my order in my head.
Okay.
Because I haven't actually written the order down on the notes.
So for those who don't know, I've been here for an hour. Just waiting.
I had forgot to write the order on my notes. I'd just done album notes, so I just had to refresh that just to make sure.
When's the last time you listened to Ed Sheeran before this episode?
A
while ago.
You know what it is? There's one album, we'll get into this, that I like a couple of the songs off, so I will occasionally listen to like one or two of those songs.
Okay.
I was an Ed Sheeran fan, maybe 2014. You know what I mean?
Right.
But since then, not an awful lot. Obviously, like I say, I'd heard all the singles and stuff.
Yeah.
But, right, let's get into it. Number 5.
Number 5 for me.
You have got...
Equals.
Right, okay. Well, my number 5 is the number 6 collaborations.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll leave that there.
Number 4.
Numero Quattro. Number 6. Collaborations project.
Right, that's confusing in itself. Right, so we've both listed number 6 collaborations project. My number 4 is Divide.
Right, okay.
It's already, I'm confused.
Okay.
By the fact, by the numbers and the symbols, I'm doing maths in my head.
Yeah.
Right. So we have both listed number 6 collaborations project.
You got it bottom. So
I've got it number 5. Not fully bottom, I guess.
Bottom of the rank.
Bottom of the
listing.
ranked. Yeah, and you've got it as 4.
Yes. Just one, please.
Why have you put it at number 4?
I've put it at number 4 because I think it's a good album. I think before...
Playing fast and loose with the term good.
I think it's a good album. I think before we had this conversation, we knew we were sitting down, by the way, you was like, are we including it? Like, I thought, oh, fucking, he doesn't like it. Right. It's not one for you.
You know, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like it. It's just I'd heard songs off it. I hadn't listened to it all the way through. And because I had 7 Ed Sheeran albums to listen to in 7 days, I kind of wanted to limit the amount of albums I had to listen to.
So, like, we're in 2024 now, right? So we're saying you was a fan 10 years ago, yeah? Like, early days, like first, second album, right? So this came out in 2019. And it feels like it came out in 2019. It feels like it's been a while since it's been out. I think no one really expected it because of like...
It is very different, isn't it?
But just in terms of like the equation stuff and like what albums have come out, just in terms of that. So when people knew it was not that and it was a collaborations project, people didn't know what to expect.
Sort of a sequel to his...
Well, yeah, it just wasn't...
His like collaboration project before he was signed is what it is, really. Do you know that?
What?
So before he was like... releasing albums, he was dropping EPs like back in the day. And he did the number 5 collaborations EP, which
I've seen it.
Which was a collab with like grime artists and stuff. So this is kind of a callback to that format.
To roll it back, to be fair, like the first time I ever heard of Ed Sheeran was on SBTV.
Right. Okay.
And you know when he had the orange mic in the booth.
Yeah.
And the Nando's skank.
Right.
Is the first Ed Sheeran knowledge I had, and when I was going through some of the stuff and I was watching some of the interviews he'd done or what he was talking about, and he's like, that's how he feels was the beginning of that SBTV episode. That's where he blew up and kind of went from there. So I kind of get why you would do it, going back to your root sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think it has some crazy features on that no one would have expected.
Right.
So like going through that song with Eminem and 50 Cent, I actually enjoyed.
Right.
I did, like never in my head where I thought that would have happened. Ed Sheeran and 50.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess it's cool in that respect, but this brings me to an issue that I have with various songs of Ed Sheeran's, is that sometimes...
From this album or just in general?
Just in general, right? Okay. But the M and 50 track is a good example of it.
Okay.
Of like, you can tell that he's like trying to pay homage to these, you know, the genres that he's loved and stuff, and like the hip hop influence, and obviously getting those 2 massive artists on a track is like a huge thing. But I just think the final package always comes out sounding like a sort of corny parody of the thing it's trying to pay homage to. So like it just sounds like a parody of an early 2000s hip hop tune.
I think you're just being harsh.
I think that both in the vocals and the beat, you know, it just sounds like...
I don't think it does sound like a parody. I think you're right. It does sound what it's trying to be. I think it's a good beat. It's a good tune. And like knowing Ed Sheeran's background in them early days, he was singing, rapping a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Yeah, and he's always sang and rapped.
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that the quality has always been high.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but it's just Ed Sheeran is known now for being a soppy bollocks, isn't he?
Right.
He makes sad songs and they go fucking wild.
Right.
Everyone knows Ed Sheeran's sad songs. That's why he's got like 17 different wedding songs that people can dance to.
Yeah.
So I think this album was a good mix of different energies.
Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy having listened to them all in such a short space of time, I did enjoy the change of pace.
Yeah, this was like...
I enjoyed the change of production. I enjoyed that
it
it wasn't a typical Ed Sheeran album, which is why I've put it on the list in the first place.
But I just think solo, I definitely think he had worse albums than this one. Which is why it was, not top, but not quite bottom. But yeah, I think the singles were good. I think every single that came out.
I like the tune with Stormzy. That was a big tune.
It is a good song.
Big tune at the time.
The one with Camila Cabello is good.
Yeah, I guess.
The only thing that is a common theme in these albums for me is like it's all power at the top.
What do you mean?
Like the big hitters.
Right.
I mean, are like consequential.
Oh, right.
And then like towards the bottom, it kind of drifts off.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm getting bored.
Well, he does. One thing that I did note in listening to these albums is he's very much like a singles artist, isn't he? I'm not convinced that the same thought is going into the album as an entire product.
I'd disagree.
Really?
I think he's a good singles artist because he makes good songs.
Right.
And they pop off.
Yeah.
But I think, like, when you look at in the body of work he does in, like, individual projects and albums, like, it does make sense. It is, like, cohesive.
Yeah.
Like, I think they've all got, like, a similar sort of, like, flow and line and story to, especially, like, towards, like, the latter ones.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I think what I found with the sequencing
I don't think you could mix and match each album.
No, there's some that you definitely could. Not this one, not number 6, because it is so different. But that leads me on to another point, which is that, we can praise it for being a departure for Ed Sheeran, right? But that doesn't mean it's good just because it's different. You know what I mean? I still found it quite a boring listen and quite formulaic.
I disagree, man. Like, I think it's a good album because it's got some good songs on.
Yeah, but every song had the exact same, like, formula and often similar vibes.
But that's because he's got a formulaic way of writing. We know
exactly.
That. We've seen that.
Exactly. So I would call that formulaic.
But no. But obviously it is formulaic, but you know what you're getting. Do you know what I mean? You know what to expect. We're not expecting some avant-garde piece of music from Ed Sheeran.
No, but that doesn't. Well, but again, that kind of is what makes it boring. I always know what I'm going to get. It's always the same.
But obviously you don't, because you wouldn't have expected that album from that run of albums that he had.
No, I wouldn't. But even the album itself, like each song is formulaic to what the album is. I get what you're saying. Like, songs have formulas to them. I don't get. I'm just saying it made.
You can't say, oh shit, it has like a similar fucking like arrangement, it has a similar like way the song flows, because like what's the song to do?
Right. Okay. Let's use this as a somewhat abstract example, but it's
okay. I'm down for abstract examples.
It's what we'll go with, right? So if you listen to an album like AM, right, all the songs have a similar like sonic aesthetic, right, but they're not all the same. The structures are different, the tones are different, the moods are different. Whereas this had both a consistent aesthetic, but also very much a formula where every song kind of has the same intro, the same structure, the same vibe. You know what I mean?
See, one thing I liked about this album, right, is there's a synth sound that is like, I feel like they've incorporated into every track at some point, doing some different thing.
Right.
And I liked that.
Right.
I was like, they've done something to like kind of keep it consistent and flowing, and like their own little twist on what they're putting in to keep the album together. Because I agree that the albums, the way the songs are set up, are very similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like fucking like intro, verse, chorus, verse, whatever, all that stuff.
He's not reinventing the wheel by any means.
Of course not, because it's pop music and that's what he's good at. But they do sound different, 100%. I think, like I was saying, like some sounds, like this synth and whatever, like the overall arching sonic values of the album are similar, because it's going to have like the same sort of production. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's what it's made to do. But I don't think you can pick two songs off it that would be like copies.
Yeah, I disagree with that. But
Either
anyway,
way, man.
So it felt pretty long to me as well. I don't know how long it is. Is it like 16 tracks or something?
15 tracks, 49 minutes.
Right. Yeah. It felt like unnecessarily long. It just felt like I was listening to content.
Yeah, I feel.
After a point.
Obviously, like, that's my number 4 and it's your number 5. I definitely feel like the later albums get like that.
Yeah.
Like, even though there's less tracks and they're shorter, they feel longer.
Yeah, for sure. Because it gets a bit boring is what the theme seemed to be for me for a lot of these albums. We'll move on. I just want to. Have you got any last notes to rattle off before we?
No, I think we've said pretty much.
All I've got. I was going to say the reason I like Take Me Back to London is because it's maybe one of the only ones on there that feels like a solid collab rather than Ed Sheeran and then a feature. You know what I mean? It's like him and Storms are going back to back. Like they're in the studio at the same time. They're bouncing off each other a lot. I appreciate that. And the only other note is that Blow, which I think is the closing track, the one with Bruno Mars, sounds kind of like a shit no copyright music that they play in the background of guitar review videos, soulless, edgeless rock.
And that's the most energy you've put into a comment off this album so far.
Yeah.
Just that one song.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
So that's your bottom. That's your number 5.
That's my number 5. What was your number 5? Equals. Right.
Have you got Equals?
I have got
okay,
Equals.
We'll talk about that later then. So your number 3. Your number 4, sorry, was Divide.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Divide.
And my number 3 is Equals.
Okay.
So we've both listed Equals and Divide.
Yes.
So Equals was your 5.
Yes.
And it's my 3.
So
tell me why you put it so low.
I think this album was highly anticipated, right? Because he's kind of come back in. He's got back involved in the flow of the albums of what he's doing.
This was post-pandemic, right?
2021.
Right. Mid-pandemic.
October. Okay. 2021.
Fizzling out pandemic.
And I think Bad Habits being that first single, I think people shit themselves.
Yeah.
I think people would be like, what the effing Jeffing is he doing here?
Yeah.
That's not very Ed Sheeran. Mm-hmm. But it was a good song nevertheless, do you know what I mean? Very pop, very catchy.
I enjoy it.
Very good use of like resampling.
Big shouts to Fred again. Handled a lot of production on this album.
Shout him out.
Shouts to Fred again.
Not
that he needs it, but you know.
No, he's done it now. He's going to blow up.
Yeah.
But it had very, 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 very mixed reviews.
Yeah.
I don't think people were sure on what to take away from it.
It was definitely a departure, isn't it, from the first 3 math-based albums.
Ed Sheeran is a different guy at this point, I think, in his career.
Just and like personally, I feel, you know. Yeah, I do appreciate the change in sound, and I think as opposed to number 6, it's just a bit more interesting. It's not just doing the kind of generic instrumentals that were around at that time. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not saying it's by any means reinventing the wheel. It's still like a fairly bland pop album. But
I feel like we're being disrespectful. Do you not feel like we're being disrespectful?
I was a little bit, but
like
also
it's
that's just my opinion, man.
No, I agree it's your opinion, but like, we just know he's like top tier songwriter.
But I don't think he's top tier songwriter. I think he's top tier pop artist.
You think he's a top tier pop artist?
Yeah,
but not a top tier songwriter. But they
aren't necessarily the top tier songwriters by any means.
I know, but it's just because we know like how much he works with other people,
right?
And like how big songs have gotten. Do you know what I mean in the past?
Yeah,
it's got to earn some sort of kudos from that.
Yeah, but then I guess you sort of get into the debate of like what, like good versus popular. Like, what does that even mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess good is subjective.
Not a debate that we have time for. You know what I mean?
But like,
I just think it's a okay all round pop album. I appreciate the tighter production. I appreciate the change in production. It's a bit more interesting than some of his other shit. It's a bit less basic. You know, it's a bit more built up.
No, I disagree. I don't think it should be that high on your list. Like, it's just, at this point, it's got, I'm saying like 4 good songs on out of 14. And the 10 to me is now we're getting like filler territory.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's great. Just because it's at my number 3 doesn't mean I think it's great. I mean, ordering these albums for me, to be honest, was kind of like...
put Divide 4th, aren't you?
The 5th best global disasters, you know what I mean? Like, none of them
are... Not quite similar.
None of them are fucking great. Like,
You're comparing Equals by Sheeran to a global disaster.
yeah,
Disgusting. You've put Divide 4th
I have, yeah.
below this.
Yeah.
And Divide has like banger, 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 banger.
Well,
on it.
Divide is so high up on my list because of the bangers, right?
But how have you got Equals higher than Divide? I feel like I need a PhD talking about the fucking set of albums.
I think it's a better
It
overall.
sounds better.
I just think it's, if anything, right, Divide, have you listed, was Divide on yours?
Third.
Right.
We've switched
Right.
them round.
Right, okay.
I think.
So Divide for me is like the highs, fucking highs, but the lows are low. Whereas Equals is just a lot more mid. A lot more steady.
No.
There's a lot less There's a lot less actively terrible shit on
Yeah,
it.
well, we're going to have to move on soon to figure out what this terrible shit you talk about is at your number 4.
Well, have you got anything else to say about Equals before we move on?
That's what I mean, man. I just wasn't really involved in it. I just didn't really feel anything from it.
I would say it's not got the thing that makes Ed Sheeran Ed Sheeran. You know what I mean? Anyone could have made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, album-wise, yeah. Song-wise, I guess it's Ed Sheeran-y.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell, like, he's got a hand in the pot. But, yeah, I think, like, production-wise and, like, Sonics he's gone for an instrument choice. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It just didn't do anything for me.
Okay. Well, let's move on to
So
Divide.
Divide.
Divide is my number 4, and it's your number 3.
Yeah, but you've got Equals above it, and that's what's pissing me off.
Right. So let me explain myself.
Fucking try.
Okay.
Please.
The big songs on it,
Yeah.
I appreciate. Castle
Okay.
on the Hill, Shape of You, obviously huge, massive pop songs, right? Did massively well at the time. You got to admire that. They're not bad songs either, you know. Some of the ballads on it,
Right.
I'm kind of like, okay, I see this. It's fine. I get why people like it, but it does just kind of feel like he's just doing Thinking Out Loud again after the previous album. You know, it's like Thinking Out Loud did well, and then it's like, oh well, I'll give him a perfect, and
I understand that.
give him a
point.
happier. You know,
I understand that point.
Where I really hate it.
Go on.
Okay, let's start with the Irish influence.
Right.
Corny as all hell.
What do you mean,
Corny
man?
as all hell. Galway Girl is fucking awful, right?
That's
Who wants Irish infused hip hop, right? It's so cringe. It's so cringy. And the thing is, the album before this, I really liked at the time. This is, you know, when I said 2014, this is why it dropped off, right? Because I listened to Divide and I was into it. I was ready for it. I'd heard Castle on the Hill. I'd heard Shape of You. I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. I'm game for it. No, it was enough to completely knock me out of the Ed Sheeran ballpark, right?
I feel like my ancestors are fucking rolling.
My ancestors are Irish
Your
as well.
ancestors.
My ancestors are Irish
You
as
are
well.
being unsassy.
We're both
my good
of
friend.
Irish heritage, right?
Like,
But my ancestors would be turning in their
No,
grave
they wouldn't,
if
man.
they heard Galway Girl.
no, disrespectful.
They wouldn't think, oh, this is a great tribute to our
Of
heritage.
course they would.
It goes back to the thing I was saying on number 6. It's like when he tries to pay homage to something, it just turns out as like a corny fucking parody.
I don't know what
There's
your
a
beef
reason that like traditional Irish music and hip hop haven't been combined before, especially not by some British white guy.
But that's his influence, and that's him. He likes hip hop. That's what, obviously, them first albums are pretty more hip hoppy, and then number 6 is a bit more hip hoppy because that's what he likes. That's what he did. Like we said, he was a singer and he raps as well, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, he's been influenced. Like when we went to Dublin, you feel it, don't you? It gets in your bones.
Right,
That
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of vibe, the atmosphere. Like you kind of think in your head, like, oh, this is like my family sort of past, and this is what they would have done and what they would have listened to.
Right.
Like when we go to like Temple Bar and then Donnies are playing in the corner in the violin, it's like, oh, that would have been the vibe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm sure people who are Irish are like cringing at the fact he's just.
What? How are they cringe? What? Fuck
like-
cringing off. No,
Oh, yeah,
we're getting
yeah,
rid of. We're getting rid of cringe.
When you go and see the real island by going to Temple Bar.
Well, that's where we went. We was there for a day. That's where we went to.
we were, yeah.
I assume if we go to other parts of Ireland, there'll be sort of similar vibes with pubs and people singing in the corner.
Right.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
You know, bless my family's souls. To think there'd be other different things going on.
Right.
But what my point is, you feel the atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you feel stuff, doesn't it? That's what I think
Right.
when we went to Ireland. Yes? So I think what he's done is like, right, how can he sort of bring that through his own style? And that's what he's done. Galway girl, oh my gosh, my girl, whatever the fuck we're going to call it, is not cringe. It's not disrespectful. It's infused with two genres. Yes. Fucking striking down. He's a musician. How dare he?
I'm just saying the two genres don't mesh well together, and especially
Get out
not,
of your fucking bubble, man.
Especially not in the way he's done it. Jacko, look who you're talking to, bro. I'm the guy for like being progressive and mixing genres up and trying to do abstract shit, right?
Right, okay. But
as long as it works artistically, and I really don't think
obviously
it does work
because it was successful and it did well, and it wasn't just popular.
Again,
it wasn't just popular, and that's why I said successful instead of popular. I think.
What's the difference?
Well, let's think of like movies, right? Successful movies aren't necessarily popular. Things that win fucking awards aren't necessarily popular.
Was this album critically acclaimed though?
Yeah, record breaking, chart dominating.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Okay, that's because Ed Sheeran makes music for the masses, right? But this is a music podcast, right? And we're talking about from a musical standpoint purely.
From a musical standpoint, it's a good album.
The rapping,
it's got good songs.
Let's talk about the rapping.
Talk about the rapping. Christmas Day, let's go.
It's still shit.
The rapping is still. What do you expect from him? He's not like someone from the ghetto who's been brought up on rap. He raps the way he raps.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
I just don't think it's very good.
Yeah, but I've listened to you rap.
I don't rap.
Yeah, you do rap sometimes.
Spat on my lip, by the way.
Fucking take it. You rapped, and you've delved.
Rapped.
Oh, fucking don't make me put clips in. We'll do it. Right. Okay. Anyway, and that's your way. That's your style of doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's his style and his style. You can't compare it to like all the actual people that are known for being rappers and that have done well in the rapping industry.
Tell you a funny little side to this.
On what?
Is I showed my mum a song one time that we were working on, like a newer one, and there was a bit in it where like it's not rapping, but the melody's very fast, right?
Okay.
And after,
it's not dancing. I just move very quickly.
That makes sense. And afterwards, she went, "Oh, it's so good, you know. You like Ed Sheeran?" And I was like,
I feel disrespected.
I was like, I know you think that's a compliment, Mum, but it really ain't. You know what I mean? So the rapping still shit. Like I say, I appreciate for the hits. I appreciate that the production is bigger and more expansive than the previous albums. Those first three sort of build on each other in quite a good way.
Yep.
It very much follows the Ed Sheeran formula. But again, at this point, I'm not that mad at that because it's 3 albums in. Each one is building on what the last one did.
Like you just said, he's expanding on this album.
I think lyrically it's quite basic though, which is just a theme in.
I think this album is where it goes a bit more like topical and theming. Like, you know, when we said before, like you can start a song like within like a bubble, like you can like what's it called, like a
mind map.
Like a mind map, yeah. Like you've got your thing in the middle, and you kind of go off. You're like, what can I write about? And then you put it in a song that sort of way.
Right.
I think this is definitely more that because obviously, like the songs are called like a bar song and stuff. And Nancy Mulligan is going to talk about them sort of things and in a more of like get as many because like we've decided and like we've talked about before, like it's hard to get what you want to say in a line.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. That's how I listen to it. Like he's got these points he wants to get in. And that's why it sounds more formulaic now in this album. This is the first time I'm like, right, he's trying to do this instead of just being natural and flowing.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good listen.
It's not an awful listen.
I think this is like where it starts. This is kind of the end of where like you can listen to the album kind of all the way through and it flows better. I mean, and like not getting bored because it is a bit different throughout.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The sequencing isn't bad in it. You know what I mean? It maybe lost me a bit, sort of towards the
Middle.
the third quarter, the second quarter.
Yeah, but it's just because like you just said before about like thinking out loud and perfect. It's like he's done that and it's done well for him.
Yeah.
And he must be an emotional guy.
Right.
And it must help him get it out there.
Yeah. Well, whatever you got to do, man.
But it's 100% better than Equals.
Well, clearly you think so.
I think people would agree.
Any more notes before we move on?
Better production, more slower and sad songs. Obviously, we just said that. Moving away from typical Sheeran, but it obviously worked at the time because it did very, very well.
I think it's still pretty typical Sheeran.
Not in terms of like production and stuff.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like, because he was started and was known for like the guy with the guitar and what he could do with the guitar. And this is the first time like you start getting like different fiddles. Yeah.
Right. I'll leave it with my closing statement, which is a note I've got here that just says, "Shite white people music for people with no culture."
That's disgusting, man. That's terrible.
I think that's pretty true, though. I have to say, to be fair, by the time I'd listened to all these albums, I was actively angry at Ed Sheeran.
I don't know what your beef is.
I was just, it's not my thing, man. Okay, so as a recap, we've moved down from 5 to 3. So your 5 was
Equals.
Mine was number 6.
Yeah.
Your 4 was
number 6.
My 4 was Divide, and your 3 was
Divide,
and my 3 was Equals.
Yeah. So done them.
Top 2 behaviour right now. I feel like we might have similar answers for this.
I think we'll have the same answers.
So
actually, I don't know.
Your number 2 was
Multiply.
Oh, my number 2 was Plus.
Yeah, because I've just seen that this was out in 2014, and that's where you said you was like into Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
And this was your time.
So my number 1 was Multiply.
Yeah.
And your number 1 was Plus.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we can talk about both these albums. Where would you like to start?
We can start with Multiply, if you want, your number 1.
Okay. Yeah, I think this album, at the time, I remember I was in America when this came out, and I bought it from like a Target or some shit.
How was you in America? What did you do?
My auntie used to live in America, so I was in.
When did we meet?
2015, back end of 2015.
Just before.
Yeah. So I was in America visiting some family, DC and Virginia, big shouts. And I bought this album from a Target because I'd liked some of the songs off his previous album. And I was like, oh, I'm about it. I enjoyed it a lot at the time, right? I think the singles were pretty good. Sing was obviously a big tune.
Yeah.
I've always liked Don't as well.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit less of a obviously big tune, but still quite a big tune. I think it was a more mature version of him from the first album.
Mm-hmm.
I think it did what we've spoke about a lot before, which is like a good second album takes on the things from the first and builds on it, expands on it. It does that, The poppy moments are poppier.
Yeah.
The soulful moments are more soulful, you know. I think vocally he's a lot stronger on this album than he is on the first one. You can see a massive progression. I was actually surprised going back and listening to that first album, just how young he sounds.
Yeah, how like raw it is.
Yeah. The production sort of stepped up a bit on this one. Obviously, I have a bit of a personal connection to it because I remember, buying it at the time and having it, and I'd sort of recently got with like my first like serious teenage girlfriend at the time, and I was away, so I was like missing it, and then the
angsty man,
and then the Sheeran hits, and it's like Photograph, big tune, I'm a mess, it's all there. The hip hop and R&B influence is a little bit more tasteful, I think, on this than it is on other albums.
Do you think that's because it's more slight though?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It felt like it was less of a parody. Like it was, I don't know. It was less eggy. It just fit. It worked better. I think this is him at his best. It's doing that. How I said like with Equals, it lacked that thing that makes Ed Sheeran. Yeah. This is him doing the thing that is Ed Sheeran to its highest degree, in my mind, anyway.
I can agree with that.
Obviously, the lyrics are still a bit basic and a bit cheesy, so that works against it. And the rapping is still a bit shit, a bit cringe, but I think it's better than it was.
Right. I can't say I disagree with most of your points. Obviously, he keeps bringing up this like parody stuff and like talking about art, like the hip hop and like the rapping,
Right?
Being cringe and shit. Can't say I agree with that. You know what I mean? Because like at the time, like especially coming off that first album, and like considering I was like in part of like the masses, I guess. Do you know what I mean? I was like going if it was popular, I guess I kind of knew about it and would listen to it at the time. But like if Ed Sheeran is putting out a song where he's rapping on, and it's doing well, and you like the song, like it's gonna introduce me more into that sort of side of music. Do you know what I mean?
So Ed Sheeran's gonna get you into rap.
I think if you wasn't into rap at all,
right,
and then you can sort of carry on singing in that style that Ed Sheeran's doing, which is rappy, it might lead you down a more rap orientated path and like get you into more like hip hop music. Yeah, I do think that,
and that works in the album's favor.
I think it works in music's favour. Right.
Okay. Anything else?
But I'm just saying, like, in terms of, like, you keep saying, like, it's cringe and stuff, but, like, he's
I just don't think he's very good at it.
But he's kind of singing, and it is, like, rapping, but he's singing.
Yeah, and there is songs where it is more singing with rap influence, and I think maybe they're the ones that work better, rather than the ones where he's just outright rapping.
Yeah. I think obviously his influences must be like a lot of like hip hop people and a lot of hip hop artists, and he's just incorporating that to his own music, which is good, you know.
Yeah, and I think on this album it definitely works better. I also think maybe it's because like the instrumentals are better and the production's a bit better on it, and it seems less like just doing the obvious thing that would happen in like old hip hop, you know, like I like Nina, you know, it's an interesting song to me. It's got like interesting like production textures and shit, so like the rapping works better over that beat than it would on maybe stuff off subsequent albums.
The only things that I've got like negative towards it is like I just don't think it's a great opening to the album.
But One and I'm a Mess.
Yeah. Because I think it is like it's got some good epic songs in there. It's got some high energy songs in it.
Yeah.
And this is like obviously Thinking Out Loud's quite, you know, third quarter where it should be.
Yeah.
That's where you want the story to go.
Yeah.
And then, but it ends sort of slowly and sad as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with like even My Dad Does Sometimes sounds like a 1975 song. I thought when I listened to it, I thought a bit crazy.
Yeah.
I think it could have had a better sequence in it. It could have been more of a story because like you got them songs together with like Sing, Don't, Nina, Photograph, Bloodstream.
Bloodstream's great.
Yeah, Bloodstream is banging, but they're all together in that first half. Like I think we could have had more of a move to it.
I see that. It does peter off towards the end, doesn't it?
But I definitely agree. You know, it was highly anticipated. It didn't disappoint people. Like you've said, it took something that was really good and it built on it.
I think some of the best Ed Sheeran songs are on this album. Like, obviously he's had hits off every album and huge songs.
Yep.
But I think just as songs, some of the actually like best, most enjoyable, most interesting ones are on this album. Like Bloodstream, like Nina, like One and I'm a Mess. You know, like I like that. That's just maybe that's more my taste.
Yeah.
But I like that, and I think at the time as well, like I was an acoustic artist. So I was into the likes of One and I'm a Mess. It didn't really bother me that it took a minute for those to ramp the album up into the likes of like Sing and Don't and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's good. Good album. Good number 2 for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that them first 3 albums make sense. Like in terms of like if it was a film trilogy, like it would make sense. I mean, you'd put them in like a good order.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I've not really got many bad things to say about it, just apart from the kind of slow finish.
Okay, well, let's move on to Plus. So this was your number 1 album.
My numero uno.
This was my number 2 album. Do you want to start, given that it's your number 1?
Yeah, I just think this is what Ed Sheeran is, isn't it? I feel like every album after this and every like songs and the production and what it goes into like stems from this.
Yeah.
This is like the foundation. Like the bare bones, this is what this guy does and this is what he does it really well. And like we just said, everything's kind of going to build up on it.
Yeah.
The things of like Multiply, some things went well, some things built upwards and like were better, but some things I think were like dropped the bar from some of these songs. I think every song is good.
Okay, fair.
I think you wouldn't have to really skip through the album.
Right, yeah.
I think you can kind of get something out of everything, and I think it's the kind of only album he's got that does that for me.
Yeah. I think these two first ones definitely are the ones that like run best as albums.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think in terms of like, you know, just like you said, like Secrets and again, like the 18, that first single was huge, and it starts off with it like that's what you want, that's what you expect. And I think it's got a good wave of like the slow songs and the songs that go big. I think it ends well, it ends high, and it's just a good.
Does it end with "Give Me Love"?
Give Me Love, yeah.
Right, yeah, huge tune.
Is it like it's even that tune in itself is dynamic?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this, I remember, it's 2011, right?
Yeah, sorry to just interject,
You
but
do.
something you said just sparked. Maybe that's like one of the things that some of the later albums lack is that how dynamic they are in terms of like how dynamic each song is individually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This album in particular, and Multiply has it as well, maybe to a slightly lesser degree, but this album is very like you could sit and play it in a room with you and it'd all work really like gently and delicately, even the sort of more fast-paced songs.
Yeah, we'll get on to that a little bit after this on about like why these newer ones aren't that great. But like I just can't believe like listening to it that it was so long ago.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of sounds like that time.
I guess it's like a bit nostalgic now, but I think like if someone brought that out tomorrow and like this is like an acoustic guy.
Yeah, a lot of it'd still work.
It'd be like, oh, that's really good. How they've done that and they've made that song.
Yeah, I agree.
But I can't really fault it on anything.
I agree with what you were saying. I think he does. It sets out his style very well, even if like I was saying earlier, vocally he's not as mature. It still sort of laid the groundwork for a lot of what we sort of would hear for the next few albums. I like some good hits on there, obviously. 18, Lego House. I like the emotional songs.
I think any of them could have been picked as singles.
Yeah. 100%.
Any of them.
Yeah. I think it really paints a good picture. Like what I got from listening to it, it felt nostalgic to me in terms of like it paints a good picture of like what love feels like when you're younger. You know what I mean?
Right, okay.
And sometimes that means that lyrically it's a bit on the nose, but also like that's what it's like at that time. You know, it's painting it. I think it portrays probably what he was feeling and the experiences he's had at that point. It portrays them really well through the songs. The rapping still a little bit shit, but You Need Me will always be huge tune, huge banger.
It is the best.
That takes me right back.
It is the best song. That's the first time I remember thinking about like I guess like rap sort of music. Do you know what I mean? Or, like,
really?
Yeah, doing that sort of
tune. That's crazy.
It is because I remember it happening. There was a song beforehand with Jay Sean and Lil Wayne down from like 2008 time.
Right.
First time I ever heard Lil Wayne. He raps in that obviously, and I was like, oh yeah, you can learn that bit. It's pretty good that you can like sing that fast. But this at the time for like my year group, I guess, was like impressive.
Right.
It's like if you could do the rap, if you could do the song and do that fast bit.
Yeah. When I first met Josh, shouts to Josh Aldred, my bro in Australia. When we were starting our first band together, like as teenagers, I didn't know him. Someone just put me onto him, and then we met up in a rehearsal room somewhere. And one of the first things he did was he sat down and he played "You Need Me" for me, but like the fucking long version with like all the different things. And I was like, oh, this guy can like rap as well, you know?
Yeah.
And that was impressive.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Like that's what I mean in terms of like bridging that gap, and it kind of got you into stuff. Like I would have never sang that fast.
Yeah, I think as well. Like,
and it's just different.
Maybe it's just our age, right? But like this album came out at a time that we can think back to now and like have like good memories of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously like, that's what I said. It is nostalgic, but I just mean in terms of like
listening to it reminded me of the first time I'd heard some of these songs. You know what I mean? And what I was like at the time.
Yeah, I agree. But I just, like I said before, I think it came out now, I think it would still work.
Yeah,
Not
100%.
in terms of like I'd start thinking about, in 5 years, I'm like, 2024, this is what came out. This is what made me feel that way. I just think the songs are good songs.
It's more timeless than his more recent work, definitely.
That is, like, if you think of Ed Sheeran, right? Ginger guy, orange album cover. That's what I would go
Little
to. Guitar, loop pedal, does it well.
Yeah.
Shitty little nerdy rapping coming from you. Starts here.
Yeah. But that's the thing as well. At the time, like that, I guess that was his like USP. That was like all these novelty things of like, oh, he's just a nerdy kid. He's got a tiny guitar. He uses the loop pedal. He sings and he raps. It's like folky, but it's hip hop. You know what I mean? All these things were fresh at the time, which I guess you can't knock him for because it was his like.
That's what he is, isn't it? That's what he's
I
like.
mean, you can say like maybe now looking back on it, bits of it were a bit gimmicky, which is maybe why I don't really like the rap so much in some of his later works. But at the time, it was part of what made it was the appeal. It was what made him so big because it was like it was new.
It was new. It was funky, fresh. Yeah, indeed. This is what I think of in terms of like going towards the later stuff, and obviously like the albums that didn't make the cut, right?
Right.
Like I just don't know if he's like lost that sort of feeling from the beginning, or he's like a bit out of touch with like what it was like when he was younger, and like that's what he was into. But I feel like he's had the opportunity to work with a lot more people and do a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
That when I was listening to Subtract, and I know on Spotify when it's got the stories at the bottom. He was like, he always had Subtract as being this, like, you know, stripped back, taken away from music and going back to the guitar. And he says he was just in a sad place, down and depressed, do you know what I mean? And he wrote like all these songs together. And his either producer or manager at the time was like, oh, that's the album. What you've just written there is the album. And I just think it's just so. I just think some of the songs aren't good.
Yeah,
Like, if you think of the difference between the songwriting, like we're saying, from like them first three, even like Divide, that you don't really like that much, but the songwriting is good.
To me, what it sounds like with these last two albums is it's very unfiltered. It's almost like he's just sitting down and he's writing what comes to him, and then he's going, that's the song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I guess you can admire to some degree, but it also, like, I think that lack of finesse and that lack of sort of drive to make it fresh and exciting and interesting kind of leaves it being boring and bland.
Yeah, so like I always talk about, and it's to many people these days when we talk about music, when you told me like 1 in every 5 songs is like a good song.
Right, yeah.
Might not be true, right? But it's always stuck with me, like I kind of agree with it. And like if you think of them songs, like they don't sound like the 1 in 5 songs.
Yeah. Just for context, what that is when you're, I told you once that like when you're writing, I think I mustn't have come up with this. I must have heard someone say it.
Yeah, I assume you would have picked it up somewhere.
But I don't know who it was. When you're writing songs, you just need to, the important thing is just to write, like just to get it out, and then like maybe 1 in every 5 will be one that you keep and you just fuck the others off, you know? But you're saying it just sounds like he's just writing them and then going, okay, that's the album, you know? Like,
yeah, same as you. When it's like, oh, I had a thought, I wrote about it, and that was a song.
He's not like editing and.
But I still feel like it's disrespectful to say. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like he's earned a place.
You just think he's like goated.
I wouldn't say goated, but I think he's like top tier. I think he's in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he's a huge pop artist, and it's admirable, right? He sells a lot of records, you know, in the same way that you can admire a Taylor Swift or an Adele, right? But that doesn't mean that they're going to be.
But the difference, like in my head, between Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift's huge, right? The biggest.
Yeah.
The biggest in the
Is it the ginger hair? Is that the difference?
No, like Ed Sheeran could write for anyone, I think.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that is fair. Well, maybe that's why I think some of his shit is a bit generic. Because especially these days, like it could be anyone.
Yeah.
You know, he's just writing.
I guess it comes back to the thing of like, is it good or is it popular?
Right.
And like because they're so big and they're at that stage now where you can release what they want and it'll like do well, no matter what.
Yeah.
But I just don't think you can take away the fact that, you know, he's done these albums in the past and you know what he's capable of, and you know that it, like, that's what I mean. In these later albums when I'm like, oh, it's a little bit shit. Still like good, it's got some gems, but it's a little bit shit.
Right.
But we know what he's capable of and we know what he brings to the table from them first 3. So that's why sometimes it's always like there's always a polished thing there, like whether it's like a synth or like a tap out or like a vocal line, like it's got gold in there.
Yeah.
But the songs just aren't.
I fucking hate it when he answers his phone mid-podcast.
But the songs.
Took a screenshot of it.
that the songs aren't as good as before.
No, I would agree. 100%. You're going to take the call, aren't you?
Let's lift it up. So
Okay. Okay, well, just as a little closer, let's recap our order and then we'll do favourite song from each album.
Okay. Good shout. Let's go.
Okay, so my number 5 was number 6, Collaborations.
And my number 5 was Equals.
My number 4 was Divide.
My number 4 was number 6, Collaborations.
My number 3 was Equals.
My number 3 was Divide.
My number 2 was Plus.
My number 2 was Multiply.
And my number 1 was Multiply.
And my number 1 was Plus.
Okay, so
That's a shambles.
I know it's hard to say, man. So let's just do what I do think is funny is that I mean, I guess it makes sense, but we listed the same 5 albums.
Yeah.
There's been cases where that doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we...
To be fair, mate, I've got them in absolute chronological order.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you? Oh, yeah. That's a bit mad, that.
And I was, it baffled me too.
That's, well, I mean, first. Did you do your... I mean, I guess you don't because you lost your notes, but did you do your...
I didn't do my favourite off the 2 I don't have.
No, but I mean, did you do the thing where you give each
I
song
did,
a
but
score?
I didn't write them down because they were surprisingly low ratings.
See, you're in denial.
And I didn't agree.
You're in denial. He's not good.
I didn't agree with it.
You're in denial.
Like, some of them were like 5.5s. I'm like, that's not true. That is not true. It's not a good representation.
Anyway,
Flawed systems.
right, well, let's just do these. Let's just do these top 5 then.
Okay. So go on. We'll go from your best. We'll go from your best, and we'll do the song because it'll be easier. So my favourite song off Multiply.
Well, no, I was going to do it in chronological order.
All right. Okay. Well, I've not got the last 2.
Yeah. I just don't want the top
Okay,
5.
so
Fuck the last 2.
plus. I've got You Need Me, I Don't Need You.
Give Me Love.
That was the hardest choice. But that is so impactful. I think that song.
What, You Need Me or Give Me Love?
You Need Me.
Right. Yeah.
I think that if I'm going back, that's the one I'll listen to the most.
Yeah. Multiply.
Bloodstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Divide.
I think you can't not say Shape of You for what it is.
I prefer Castle on a Hill.
Like, I preferred Castle on the Hill also. And I think it's a bit more like epic. It's more dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think because it was just constantly drilling my brain now, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With Shape of You, I've topped it.
What was next? Number 6.
Number 6, I've got Beautiful People.
Take Me Back to London.
Yeah.
And Equals.
Bad Habits.
Bad Habits.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's disgusting, innit, when you're choosing the first single out of the albums.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm robbing people.
Well, it proves that you're a basic bitch.
That your first single's the best song on the album.
Well, not just because you think that.
Well, that's what we did on the last
also,
one.
actually, maybe it proves that Ed Sheeran's a basic bitch because the single is the best song.
That's what I mean, rather than me, because I'm not I've said it for many.
Yeah.
Just that last one.
Right.
But hey ho, let's we obviously have varying opinions on the guy.
Yeah.
But you got to admit, he's in there, isn't he? He's up there.
He's definitely one of the biggest pop artists of this generation.
Yeah. And I think that's acceptable in the fucking how shit is that the biggest pop artist is like acceptable to put him there.
Yeah.
Well, fair play to the man, yeah.
Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and also let us know if you want us to rank any other artists, maybe some of your favourite artists. We'll give them a listen.
Yep.
Only maybe though, we might not.
I don't care.
You know what we're like. But yeah, thank you for listening and or watching. The links to all of our social medias are in the description. I'm talking really fast because the camera's going to die.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go.
Yeah, like, subscribe, comment.
Bye.
Peace out. Bye.
Does my life still sound the same?